You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Podcast. I'm Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great, man. Full and recovering from Turkey Day. Hopefully you guys had a great time as well. Lots of good football. I was fully entertained. Some really good college football on today. Watched I didn't really watch. I was setting up Christmas decorations, but I was glancing at the U.S.-England soccer game. Yes, we're well-rounded on this show. They played to a 0-0 draw. If you understand the terminology there, you get it. And if not, it was a 0-0 tie, y'all. But no, it's good, man. So now I'm getting geared up. Great day of college football tomorrow. And then on to the NFL. So a lot of fun, man. A lot of good games on TV. Very easy to just get wrapped up on the couch and just enjoy everything that's going on around you. Great time of year. But enough about me, sir. How are you this evening, Derek?
You know, I cannot complain. My waist certainly can at this point. My belt was my belt certainly did its job yesterday and filed a grievance against me today. So that's always a fun one. But no, it was a great deal. Lots of wonderful food on the table. We had a great time yesterday as well. So yeah, absolutely couldn't complain. Did the whole did the JOB today. So
yeah.
Doing that whole retail life there as well. So there was that, and definitely that Black Friday has certainly changed a little bit over the last few years. So another interesting one there. So for those of you out there, hopefully you got some chances to get some good food, get some good company, spend it with some folks that you enjoy spending the holidays with, and you got some football or you got some shopping, whatever your persuasion is. But I am excited. We've got the Friday Night Lights show tonight, so we're going to go through. We're going to hit up all of our predictions, all of our overs, our unders, our spreads, the player props, all that good stuff, and keep that going. I know we've got plenty of questions out there in the chat there as well. Make sure that if you've got any questions, you throw them in the chat. Let us get you some of those answers to rock and roll and help you out with this Week 12 matchup. You got 3 weeks left before the playoffs start. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make that march towards cash and trophies. And, of course, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. And the YouTube channel, of course, is the best place to support this independent podcast. Head on over there, youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. Click that subscribe button, all that good stuff. Anyway, there's all the PSAs. There's all the housekeeping stuff kind of out of the way. We got it done early tonight. So
just means we get to hit it again.
Yes, exactly. We'll wait till the end. So, alrighty. So let's go ahead and we got Satober in the chat. Always good seeing Satober in the chat here. He's asking Christian Kirk or Rashad White in the flex, and man, oh man, this is an interesting one, right? You've got Leonard Fournette, who's still carrying some of that injury designation tag around him. Tampa Bay, he's been bad running the football regardless. And you got Christian Kirk and the Jags going up against Baltimore. Who do you think on this one?
So, all right. So Kirk's over under, right? His fantasy prop is about 62.5, 63.5, give or take what site you're looking at and where you can get the points. So that's kind of where they're thinking he's going to round up. My guess is that's, 4 or 5 catches for 62 yards, 11 points, maybe a touchdown. So you toss in 6 more, right? Like we're thinking, 17-point game from Christian Kirk? That's pretty good. Here's my thoughts on White are, if Leonard Fournette is downgraded from doubtful to out, which I expect him to be, I'm playing Rashad White. Like, I'm just swinging for the fences and playing the upside here. Like, this kid does have a lot of pop. He has been more involved in the passing game, so now he gets all the run. There is no Gio Bernard. He's on IR. Leonard Fournette is out. Like, you have I I can't even think of the guy who's playing behind.
Vaughn?
There you go. Vaughn. Yeah, Vaughn behind him, who really hasn't even seen the light of day. Like, so he'll see some spell work, but I think Rachaad White dominates all the touches here. So if Fournette is out, I'm playing Rachaad White because I'll get the rushing and the passing, and I think I can get this squeezed in here and outperform. If you need the safer floor, you're going with Christian Kirk. Like, Christian Kirk will get you about 60-plus yards. He should see anywhere from 5 to 7 catches in this game against Baltimore, and there's a decent chance he ends up in the end zone. So Kirk is your floor. White is your ceiling. And for me, I'm playing White, no questions asked, if Fournette is designated out for the game. We've kept him on our rosters this long. This is my opportunity where I can plug him into a flex spot against a comparable equivalent in Kirk, right? And what you're expecting for fantasy output and see what I can get.
Yeah, I think you summed that up very well. If Rachaad White's really got that entire backfield to himself, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Rachaad White at that point. But you summed that up very well. Otherwise, that if Christian or if Leonard Fournette plays, and I've got to deal with kind of that, Lenny kind of, moseying along, as we've kind of seen him all season long here. I would go with Christian Kirk at that point on the floor. But again, if you, so I think you hit it very well on the head, and we'll just kind of say cosign and move along here. Alrighty, next question coming in here, and this one came in from Twitter earlier today. You got to sit one, so looks like they've got 3 starting spots that we got to fill here. 4 players to pick from. Monty Gibby, Samaje Perine, and Dameon Pierce. Got to sit one. Who you sitting?
I'm sitting Dameon Pierce. He's the only player in a game with a predictable bad script for what he needs. I expect Washington and Atlanta to be fairly close for most of the game. I expect Monty to get a ton of work this week against the Jets, not knowing if Fields is going or not, game time decision, but still Monty should see a bunch of work regardless. And Perine makes too much sense. He's the only guy in town right now with Joe Mixon being ruled out due to the concussion. So Pierce seemingly starting to hit that rookie wall, and I don't like the matchup. They're going to be negative script for most of the game, so they're going to have to try and chuck it around the yard with Kyle Allen. So Pierce is the guy I sit this week.
Yeah, I think Perine actually probably has one of the better ceilings of these 4 players there right now, right? Like when we see Joe Mixon mix time and Samaje Perine comes in, because Samaje gets a lot of third down work anyway, even when Joe Mixon's fully healthy and going, and Joe Mixon is one of the highest snap percentages of a starting running back there. So, and even with that, Perine still gets enough passing work to make him, somewhat fantasy relevant from a week-to-week basis, because he can catch one for 30 yards and get to the end zone, right? But with Mixon being out and he now gets the run work as well, yeah, like Samaje Perine has upper, I would say I would see his ceiling probably around running back 13, 14 this week. I could see him get that high. Monty Gibby, love it. And Pierce, you're right. Like the game script just going to be bad on that one. So
yeah, I like Perine more if Jamar Chase doesn't go.
Yes, that's very true.
Because if Chase goes, Tennessee's front 7 does a really good job stuffing the run. Like we talked about this briefly on the Tuesday night show, where Tennessee's vulnerable is the pass, right? Cincinnati did kind of figure out that they needed to remain a bit more balanced without Jamar Chase. Like, you just didn't quite have enough with just T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Like, they needed that third elite weapon. Obviously, Chase more than fits the bill for that. So I think if Chase does come back, I think we're going to, air raid. I just don't see how Joe Burrow doesn't drop back and try and throw the ball 40 or 45 times a game. So I think his ceiling's capped. I think wide receiver 2 potential's there because of his receiving work, right? Like, he'll see the groundwork, but it's really him being able to see can he get 6 or 7 catches out of the backfield? If he can get 6 or 7 catches out of the backfield for 50 yards, 50 yards and a touchdown receiving on top of, call it 40, 45 yards rushing, that's a complete day. And that does fit the running back 2 bill. Don't expect him to be top 10. Like, I don't see that happening. You went from starting running back or, start every week Joe Mixon. This is a great fill-in, but manage expectations, y'all. Like, it's not going to be the same.
Right. Like, this is one of those that, and let's be honest too, if you picked up Samaje Perine, which most everybody did, if they've got him on the roster this week, they picked him up this week to try and play him. He should be your flex type of play there. And that's really what that is. And he has great upside for a flex play. Also should provide you with a pretty safe floor in a flex play there as well.
I just picked him up so I didn't have to go against him.
Yeah, that could be part of it too.
I'm debating him as my flex, but I think I like the allure of how well Najee's played these last couple weeks, and with Jaylen Warren being dinged up in practice, I'm going Harris over Perine here at the moment in my flex, but either way, it should be fun.
You heard it all right there. So the weeks that Kevin moved Najee to his bench, all of a sudden Najee popped a little bit. Now, if Najee has a bad week, Kevin's got him in the flex. Kevin's available for donations to bench him again, I'm sure. So that
I'll send out my GoFundMe later.
Exactly. So, alrighty. Next question. This one came in from the YouTube channel earlier today. Perine, Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin. You got to start one, flex one, sit one.
Start one, flex one, sit one. I think I'm sitting Kirk. I think you're starting. I think you're starting Terry McLaurin against Atlanta, right? Like, and Heineke's still the quarterback there. It's going up against a plus matchup going up against Atlanta. Like, you have to start McLaurin. He's the best player you have out of that group. Flex, I'm going to stay Perine. Like, again, the passing work that he gets out of the backfield plus the running game work. Like, I just like the fact that he can double dip there in points, much like the last question that we were talking about. And I will take my chances and sit Christian Kirk.
Cosign. RS German over on YouTube asking or saying traded Olave and Pierce for Chase, likely got a bye for the playoffs.
I like that.
So do I. You get the elite upside there. And if you have the bye and you're not having to play until week 16 for the playoffs, shoot, I mean that gives Chase again just enough time to come back and be fully healthy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a high end, but mid to high end wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside and Olave. And I'm assuming, I guess I'd be curious if it was Dameon Pierce or Alec Pierce.
I'm going to guess Dameon Pierce is where I'm guessing on that. I don't think you've got enough for Alec Pierce and Olave.
We've seen some weird ones though, right?
True. That is very true.
Like, either way, like, I like the fact that you got Chase. He's a home run hitter with an extremely high ceiling. Obviously, you've done well enough where you think you're locking down a bye for the first week of the playoffs. Like, all that stuff's great. It gives time for Chase to heal and get back in the swing of things, and you're good to go. But having heavy hitters for the playoffs, it's how you win weeks, right? All these teams get competitive. The games get tight. It's not like you're running through, the bottom of your league and you kind of get those easier wins, and you need guys like Chase who can go off and break 60-yard touchdown passes and get those bonuses. So I like it, man. I think if it is Dameon Pierce, that's great too, because I think he's on the way down. I think he's trending down. He's hitting that rookie wall. Olave's been extremely good, just inconsistent quarterback play, but Olave himself has been good. So far, I think he's made my point clear that the best receiver in the draft this year, right? That I was hanging on for at least year one. A lot of career left, but at least for year one, I'm at least going to say I was right on Olave. Everyone else can debate me on that, but either way, I like the Chase call. Good for you, man. Good luck.
Yeah. And certainly like Olave has done well, but if you've really followed what he's done and kind of taken snapshots over the course of the season and kind of broken it down into, kind of quarters or halves of the season, really over the last few weeks, with the exception of this past week where he had 100 yards and a TD, really had not been doing well and was in wide receiver 3 territory. And this last week where he uncorked for you and put up 100 yards and a TD, got him up into wide receiver 22. So even off of a monster week like that, from week 6 through 11, so about the back half of the season that we played here, he was not doing a whole lot for you. So again, I like the move. And RS German is saying that it was Dameon Pierce. And then thanks us for the time. So yeah, love it. Great move there. I think that you're doing all that you need to do to be setting yourself up for a good run at the playoffs. Cletus on YouTube.
Cletus!
I like it. Hey fellas, I was wondering, should I start Njoku or Higbee this week?
I'm starting Njoku over Higbee. Like, I am staying away from every single Ram asset there is. And it doesn't matter. I am finding ways to bench them all. Allen Robinson, Ben Skoranek, Kyron Williams, Cam Akers. It doesn't matter. I am finding any way possible. Higbee, all of them. Sit all of them. I just don't want it. I don't want a piece of that. I trust Njoku more than I trust anybody in the Rams offense right now.
I trust Jacoby Brissett more than I don't even remember who was starting. Is it John Wolford this week? Is that who was saying?
Yeah, I think so.
So I certainly trust that's right. Like Jacoby Brissett, trust him more than another starting quarterback option out there.
And this is Jacoby's swan song, guys. Right? Like this is his last start. Presumably, right? I mean, unless something crazy happens, but this is his last start of the season. So you got to think he's trying to prove himself. He's trying to find where that next spot is.
Oh, no, it's Bryce Perkins. That's who's starting for the Rams. Bryce Perkins.
Yes.
Oh, John Wolford just got removed from the injury report with his neck, and I think Bryce Perkins is actually set to start.
Okay. Well, I'm sure his mother's really proud that he gets to play in an NFL game. But everybody else is scratching their head going, who the F is this guy? So, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm passing on all of it. I'm trusting Jacoby to, start making the play for his next destination, right? Whether he re-ups with the Browns or whether he goes and tries to find something somewhere else. Like, it's just one of those deals. Like, how bad are the Colts kicking themselves? If they just would have kept Jacoby Brissett 2 years ago and not gone with, Phyllis and then, 3 years ago, right? Because then they went Phyllis and then Wentz and now Matt Ryan. I think that team would be in a completely different spot right now if you just would have trusted Jacoby to run that thing for the last 3 years. But extremely great backup quarterback. We've seen what he's been able to do. Like, is he an all-pro? No, he's not. But he's extremely serviceable. He makes the right decision most of the time. Like, he's not prevalent to a bunch of turnovers. And
he's an excellent game manager.
He seems he seems to play within the concept of what these teams want to do. He did it for the Colts. He's done it for the Browns. Like, he's not trying to outplay himself. Like, it's just one of those things where, Miami, right? He did it for Miami too. Like, he's not all pro, guys, but he's a serviceable quarterback, and he will land on another roster. Heck, he'd be the best quarterback on the Broncos right now.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, the Broncos,
the Panthers, he'd be the best quarterback on the Panthers too. Like, he can absolutely find a landing spot. He might be starting again next year.
Yeah. Sure, just imagine Jacoby Brissett probably could have gotten the Broncos to 18 points per game, and they'd be sitting at 10-1, 9-1, whatever it would be right now. Anyway, we're not bitter. We're not bitter Broncos fans at all.
Still the stupidest stat ever. Like, just crazy stupid. Like, 18 points a game, and the Broncos are only sitting on one loss at the end of regulation.
Mm-hmm. You think about that?
Holy smokes. Imagine what you'd be talking about then. Like, they just keep finding a way to win. They're gritty and everything. No, they're dumpster fire guys.
Yeah. Well, the narrative actually wouldn't change. The defense is so elite that they hold teams down. The Broncos, one of the best defensive scoring teams as far as not allowing points. One of the absolute worst in the league at putting points on the board. And But hey, we got a $250 million quarterback. Anyway, we'll spend all night here, I'm sure. Yeah, and then I just pulled up some of the
quarterback. That's what I heard.
Yes, you're not wrong. Like
calling Seahawk audibles. Okay, I'm gonna get off pace for a little bit here because I heard this from one of my buddies the other night. He was talking about the scuttlebutt in Denver about the real reason Melvin Gordon got cut. And have you heard anything about this yet?
I have not.
Okay. So there's a rumor floating around Denver right now that Melvin Gordon was released not because of the fumble, but because Russell Wilson went up to the front office and demanded his release because Gordon was mad at Russ after the game for whatever reason and started playing Future in the locker room. So for those of you who don't know, Future is a rapper. Future and Sierra, Russell Wilson's wife, were at one point a thing. And Future and Russell and Sierra are in a lawsuit worth $15.5 million right now. So part of what Russ did when he set up is like, it is forbidden to play Future in this locker room. Like it messes up his feng shui or whatever you want to do. The story goes, Melvin Gordon was pissed, started blasting Future in the locker room, and Wilson went right upstairs to GM, said, get this guy out of here. And boom, he was gone.
All right.
Like, crazy, but it's also
gotta love the rumor mills.
Well, the rumor mills, and right, wrong, or indifferent, true or not, what speaks volumes is Darrell Henderson was cut and picked up right after he cleared waivers to the Jags, and I thought the Broncos should have made that run for it. But Melvin Gordon clears waivers and doesn't really sound like anybody's sniffing at him.
No. So, yeah. Anyway, I also went and looked real quick just at the Rams practice reports and all of that. So yes, Bryce Perkins has been taking all the first team reps this week. And it also looks like John Wolford also just cleared, from the neck and was removed from the injury report. And the Rams on Friday have yet to declare a starting quarterback for Sunday. So, that's a great nod for a team that's projected to lose by more than two possessions. So, anyway, all right, Kevin, what do you say? Should we get into some of these games? Start breaking some of these guys down.
Yeah, let's jump into it. We really, even with the 3 on Thursday, we do have a full slate this week.
Right,
so.
13 games to get through. Let's go ahead and start right here with the Buccaneers and the Browns. Buccaneers favored by 3.5, over under on this one at 42.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Tampa Bay and I'm taking the over. I'm buying the belief that this bye week cured a lot of the ails that Tampa Bay had. That their receivers got a little bit healthier. Tom Brady was able to work with them. They got Thanksgiving, they had their Thanksgiving. They got to go through everything and just reset their minds. And now they're going to go on the run here. Now they're going to, essentially get in playoff mode. And Tom Brady in playoff mode is not a guy I want to bet against. So I'm taking Tampa Bay. I like the over in this game. I think Cleveland's going to find a way to put up some points. So we get to, this 24-21 type game is kind of how I'm seeing it. Entertaining game. Well, I guess it can't be 24-21, maybe 27-21, something like that for Tampa Bay. But I have them covering it with an offensive resurgence, I think is the word I want to use, from Tampa Bay.
I like it. I see this being a touch or field goal game when it's all said and done. So I'm going to take Cleveland on this one. It's the hook that pulls me back to the Cleveland side on this one. So I think the Bucs do win. But I think it's by a field goal on this one. As far as the over-under goes on this one, it was very tempting with that line set at 42.5 to go with the over on it. I think that we're going to see the under, and I think we're going to see this thing come out to be like a 21-18 game is how I think I'm calling this one. 22-19 even. Like that's probably the score because it's just weird enough. And, these two teams have put up some weird scores. So that's it. I'm even going to call my shot and say 22-17 to 19 is going to be the total on this thing, and we'll see how that one plays out. But
go buy your square now.
Yeah, exactly. Really good. You can get really good odds on those things when you call the exact score. That just tells you how hard it is to hit those. But anyway, a prop that when I was looking through this that I really liked, and I felt almost like I was cheating a little bit because of the fact that where the line was set, but it was Donovan Peoples-Jones over 40.5 receiving yards. DJP has certainly gone over that mark for the last several weeks running. And I do think that Jacoby Brissett's going to come out and do enough to certainly get Peoples-Jones, well over that mark.
No, very good. I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is here. I've Godwin going over 62.5 receiving yards. I think now that he's had an extra week to keep prepping and get back in the swing of things, we're going to see him fed early and often.
I like it. Let's go ahead and hit up our next matchup here. We got the Bengals. We got the Titans. Bengals favored by 3. Over under on this one is 43.5.
I have the Bengals. No, excuse me. I have the Titans covering this one. Excuse me. I have the Titans covering this one. I don't know. I don't necessarily love the money line on the Titans to the point where I'm willing to say, yeah, they're going to win. But would this surprise you if this was like a 23-24 type game when it was all said and done with? Like, it just kind of has that feel where it's going to come down to, whoever has the ball last, and the team that's trailing, trying to punch it in or get in field goal range or whatever and get the win that way. But it should be an interesting game. The Bengals have been a little bit better since they got gashed against by Nick Chubb against the run. The Titans are still pretty poor against the pass, right? So you expect the Cincinnati game plan to be, we're going to come out and start hucking and chucking, man. Like, just kind of one of those things, and see how well they do at stopping Derrick Henry and the Ryan Tannehill that showed up last Thursday, right? That was a really good Ryan Tannehill. So the Titans are the team that no one likes to talk about, but they're 8-2 against the spread. So I'm taking Titans to cover.
Yeah, I'm taking the Titans to cover as well. I think that you're right. They have tightened up a lot since Nick Chubb just kind of went gangbusters on him. But the Titans have a lot of injuries to keep an eye on and what that's going to look like. And it's eyes that we don't necessarily keep an eye on for fantasy purposes because they're on the defensive line. They've got a lot of that interior defensive line banged up. They could miss this week, which that could allow Samaje to get a little bit more run than we might expect there on this one. But I absolutely love the call there. I do think that the Titans find a way to keep this thing close. Like, this feels like a field goal or less type of game. And so at that point, I'll take the points and the team that's getting those points when I'm predicting a push or less. So I love that call on Tennessee. I do like the over. I think that these two teams are going to do enough to put up enough points, because this one here at 43.5, realistically, you're talking a 24-21 type of game easily carries you on the over side of that. And I think both of these teams are going to put up at least 20 points on this one. As far as a prop that I really liked, they let me run with it again, and I'm going to do it. Derrick Henry over 12.5 receiving yards. Again, this is one of those props that Derrick Henry has been doing just enough where he gets like 1 or 2 catches a game. And this is one of those that he can just kind of break 12.5 yards on a single play for receiving yards. So I like those kind of little props where I can get it on one play and be done with it. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take Derrick Henry over 12.5 receiving yards for the prop.
No, I like that. I'm taking Ryan Tannehill over 219.5. That seems just a touch low for me. I think he's going to finish right around that 225 to 230 mark in this game. Cincinnati's going to have to put some guys in the box to help slow down Derrick Henry. And I think that with that, the play action game is very much alive. So we'll see if whether it's Treylon Burks that finds a way to get deep again, or maybe that, they find Nakeem. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
This is bad. I'm sorry, guys. I should know his name.
Isn't it Nakeem Ekum Hines? Is that?
Yes,
is that what it is?
I think so. Yes. So see if we can get him behind the defense. So I do expect something like that to happen, and it's all going to push over 220 yards passing for Tannehill.
Yeah, I think that Treylon Burks will be the benefactor of that one. It wouldn't surprise me to see him have one or two long receptions in this one of 20-plus yards. So I think he'll put up a decent deal, and this could be the emerging that we see of Treylon Burks.
I almost took his prop because his prop this week's only like 43.5 receiving yards. So I was very intrigued with that one as well, but I didn't want to chase all the points from last week, so I figured I'd take a more well-rounded approach with Tannehill.
Yeah, that's not a bad bet. And it was Nick Westbrook Ekine is.
Yes, sorry, thank you.
That's okay. It was driving me nuts. I had to go look it up and make sure.
No, I'm glad you did
that we gave him the proper
doo-doo. Yeah.
Alrighty. Comment coming in here. Fourth and Flex Fantasy Football Podcast over on the YouTube. What's going on, fellas? Not much. We're just talking the old spreads, the overs, the unders, the props here for the Sunday slate in week 12. And of course, answering any questions anybody has, throw it out there, trying to make the march towards cash and trophies and keeping that one going. So again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, throw them in the chat. Let's talk about them. Let's get you set. Let's get you ready to rock and roll. But let's go ahead, and while we're waiting for some more comments and questions to come in here, let's hit up the next matchup here. We got the Texans. We got the Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 14. The over-under on this one's 47. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Miami to cover the 14, and I'm saying under on this one. I just don't see where the Texans' offense comes from. Like, you're throwing Kyle Allen in there. If it's anything like what he did with Washington, he was kind of a shot in the arm for them, right? Like, he did help move the ball a little bit, but I think Miami's kind of got this one under wraps here, and I expect them to be fully dominant. Jeff Wilson Jr., I think, is going to have a gangbusters day. So if you have him, he's the guy that you want to put in your lineup because Raheem Mostert is out this week. So it is all Jeff Wilson Jr., so he's going to be seeing everything coming his way, which I like a lot. So Miami, for me, they're going to find a way to, 15 plus points to win the game. But we're going to stay at the under because Houston, I don't see how they put enough points up on the board to get to 47.
No. Like, this is one of those that I'm not gonna lie. I hate calling the spreads when they're a 2-possession type of game. Like, I really don't like taking 2-possession deals when it's 10 points, much less when it's actual 2 touchdowns.
I liked it a lot more when it opened at 10 than what I do now at 14. But this is where we're at.
That is the case. This is where we're at. But I got to take Miami. I don't know how. I really just don't know how the Houston Texans put enough points on the board to do that. Miami has been very forgiving for opposing quarterbacks, allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. But that being the case, Brandon Cooks is not really hasn't emerged. Nico Collins is been doing all right here and there. I just don't know that Kyle Allen does enough to do that, and I don't know that we even see Kyle Allen touch 250 passing yards when this thing's all said and done. So I just, as much as I usually have a hard time calling for a 2 touchdown point cover, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take Miami to cover the spread here. I do think that the under comes into play. This, again, is one of those that the under, I almost took the over just because I think that there's a chance that Miami could put up 40 points in this thing. And you would like to think that Houston could find their way into the end zone once or kick enough field goals a couple of times to get there. But yeah, I'm still going to take the under. I'm going to take Miami to cover. I did like Tua's prop of under 286.5 passing yards. Again, this is one of those that with the Texans, you pretty much, you've seen great quarterbacks play them and come well under 250 passing yards on this one, just because the fact that you don't have to pass the ball because you can just run it all day and move the ball down the field pretty easy against them that way. So I think Tua has a tough time getting to 286.5 passing yards. So I'm going to take the under there.
Yeah, I'm going to take Jalen Waddle over 68.5. I think that they're going to be really focused in on trying to slow down Tyreek, and Waddle's going to be the recipient of that this game.
Yeah, and that's one of those, we've seen Jalen Waddle break that on one play. Like, he could absolutely do that. Like, he could catch a quick slant and he's gone type of thing. And So you could see that one hit very, very early in the game on even one or two plays there. So not a bad call. Let's go ahead and head on over into the next matchup here. We've got the Bears, we've got the Jets, and the Jets right now are favored by 6. The over-under is 38.5 on this one. And it's very interesting to see a team that just had the quarterback change in the middle of the season get a 6-point favorite on this one. And most of that has to do with the news coming out on Justin Fields. We don't know if Justin Fields is actually going to play in this one. Still questionable heading into this one. Had the shoulder injury early on or in last game. Has missed a lot of practice this week. So I think that you're going to see a whole lot of David Montgomery in this one. And that's going to be the Bears' major way of moving the ball on this one. So we'll see how that quarterback looks and works. So it's tough for me to go out and say, Jets when in the middle of going to Mike White, and coming off of a very, very poor showing against the Patriots. But I do think that the Jets are going to cover. Again, this is one of those that if Justin Fields plays, I would flop and I would take Chicago to cover the 6. But if Fields misses, I'm taking the Jets. I'm going to take the over on this one. This one here feels like you'll see both of these teams muddle around and get just enough points on the board to the point where we'll see, the over on this one at only 38.5. Very low scoring line there. So I'll take the over. I did have the prop of Michael Carter under 45.5 rushing yards. So I like that one. But Kevin, what are your thoughts here?
I'm going to say the Bears. I think the Bears find a way to cover the 6. Both are playing backup quarterbacks, seemingly, right? We'll see what goes on with Fields. I expect there to be a lot of running in this game. Like, I think the clock just continues to kind of go and move away. So as long as it's not penalty ridden, this should be one of the shortest games on the slate here this week. So I do like that. And I like the under. Because of that short clock, possessions are going to be limited. I think we're going to see a lot of field goals in this game, which always help towards the under, and maybe, just maybe, you see a touchdown by each team.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see that. Mike White, I don't know. The Jets might actually trust him to throw the ball a little bit more than they were trusting Zach Wilson to try and do that. But
I don't understand why they're not starting Flacco.
I don't either. Like, Flacco looked pretty good those first couple of games that we saw him out there. Granted, it could be
the
that
ball down the field,
right.
Made good decisions. Like, his last start wasn't the greatest, but the first, 3 weeks of the season,
mm-hmm.
Flacco looked serviceable. Again, not all pro. We're not, it's not that we're rushing out to say, all right, this guy's, back in his prime and as good as Josh Allen, but he was extremely serviceable for what this Jets team wants to do. Limit turnovers, be smart, use the clock correctly, play sound defense. Like, they just expect someone to kind of professionally handle business better than Zach Wilson did, seemingly oblivious to his own shortcomings.
Right. Well, and it's one of those two. The only reason I could think that they go to Mike White over Joe Flacco is they already have the film on Flacco. They know that Flacco's a short-term Band-Aid. Maybe they've got something in White, and they can kind of see what that looks like there. I could see that being potentially part of the reason. Part of the other reason could be the fact, too, that I think Mike White gives you kind of somewhere in between the fact that Zach Wilson not throwing the ball, Joe Flacco doing nothing but throwing the ball. And I think that Robert Saleh wants to probably, limit that a little bit more to the point where we're going to see Mike White get about 30 pass attempts in this thing and go from there and not see the 50 or 60 that we're seeing Joe Flacco put up. Like, that's the only thing that I could think of as to why they would go that route. Because I was right there with you when I saw that come out that they're starting Mike White. I was like, I don't understand why you went the Joe Flacco route. So
that's why we don't get paid to be coaches.
It's true. It's true. We are available, though. If there's any teams out there listening, we can certainly give you our opinions on that. So, all righty. Let's go ahead and move on here to the next matchup. We've got the Falcons. We got the Commanders. Commanders favored by 4. The over-under on this one, 40.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Commanders in this game at home. They've been really resilient, right? 6-5. They're still fighting for a playoff spot in the NFC. And they've just kind of been plugging right along, doing the right things here. The defense is starting to look a bit better here the last couple of weeks. I think that continues. So they're going to slow down the Falcons' rushing attack, right? Because they don't really throw the ball. But I think Washington finds a way, but I'm taking the over. Like, I do think that there's a way, and a pretty clear way, for both these teams to get to, 24-20, something like that. Maybe it's even 24-17 gets us just over, right? And I think that's probably a more realistic thing. So should be rather interesting. Not a whole lot of fantasy relevance in this game. Pitt's obviously on IR. Drake London's hit or miss. Mariota's been fairly serviceable because of his legs, not because of his arm. And then on the Washington side, you're hammering Terry McLaurin, and then you're playing Gibby and possibly Brian Robinson if you're in a flex position.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I got to go with the Falcons on this one. That 4 points is what gets me. If it was 3 points, I'd probably say, okay, let's look at the Commanders. Let's go that route. But Atlanta has been pretty good this year, especially against the spread on this one. They've only lost by 4 points or more this season, 3 total times out of the 11 games they played. So they've managed to keep all of these games kind of inside that 3-point margin. And so I think I'm going to take the Atlanta to cover the 4. I do think that you probably see Washington win this thing, but I think it's a field goal game. I do like the over right there with you on that one. Again, this one feels a lot like a 21-18 type of. Actually, I guess that doesn't get the job done, does it? Probably like a 21-24 type of matchup. 23-20 type of matchup. That's kind of where I see this one playing out and kind of going from there. So I like those. And then I'm taking Drake London. Surprisingly enough, as much as Atlanta throws the ball or doesn't throw the ball, doesn't do that, I'm going to take him to go over 37.5 receiving yards. No Kyle Pitts there. Not that Kyle Pitts was doing a major factor anyway, but I think that, London probably gets 1 or 2 of those targets, and we see him find a way to sneakily get to, 38, 39 receiving yards when it's all said and done.
Fair enough. I'm taking Taylor Heineke over 212.5 passing yards. Like, this Atlanta passing defense is not very good. They've been doing decent against the run. Actually, they haven't really gotten gashed on the ground. Their problems, well, unless your name's Carolina and then Foreman crushes them. But I digress. Outside of that, they're doing a pretty good job against the run. And Heineke's going to be able to throw it pretty much to whoever he wants. Jahan Dotson's back in the fold, coming, healthy after injury. Curtis Samuel's been doing just enough. You have F1, obviously. Logan Thomas is back too. So Washington finally has its full complement of assets and skill position players. I think they're going to take the reins off of Heineke here a little bit and try and, let him have fun with some of these toys.
Yeah, I like that one. I could definitely see that. And Heineke, it's one of those that we may have seen Carson Wentz time already come to an end here in Washington. I don't know that they've got any reason to have to go back to Wentz with the way Heineke has been playing here lately.
Wentz looked really good those first 4 weeks, though. Like, it's not like, Heineke's played well enough to keep the job in some respects. I get that. But Wentz didn't necessarily play bad enough to lose it in Washington, right? Like, he keeps getting the raw end of every deal possible. He finds a way to grab the short end of that stick.
Right. Well, it also doesn't help too that, like, right at the, like, one of the last games that he plays as a starter, he makes just a very bad play that ends up costing the game. And it's one of those that you can immediately point to it and go, that was the play. That's the reason that game was.
The play that he broke his finger on?
Yeah. Well, it's still one of those, he threw that pick right there when they were trying to start a drive, all of that. But I digress. Same thing would happen in Indianapolis where he threw that, like, pick 6 as he's spinning around in the end zone and everything else. Like, It's just the optics surrounding that are just so bad that it's the snapshots are what kind of hold they have some staying power on that one. All righty, let's go ahead and move on over to our next matchup here. We got the Broncos and the Panthers, and the Broncos are favored by a point. Over under on this one, 36. What are your thoughts here?
I'm thinking Carolina covers. Like I refuse to say the Broncos are going to win another game this season. Like I just really refuse to say it. If it happens, great, yay. I'm not betting the game necessarily, but I think the Broncos find a way to choke this one away again. Carolina wins outright because they're at home, and Denver does stupid Denver type things. I'm still taking the under though, even at 36 points. It started at 35. It just crept up to 36. Honestly, if you're wanting to bet the under, if you're really wanting to bet the under, wait until right before game time, because I think this game might sneak up another half a point or point and give you that little bit more cushion to be able to hammer that under. But even at 36, I'm taking it. Like, I just don't see how you are able to say the Broncos are going to score more than 18 points. Like, that you need the Broncos to score 19 points to basically get to this game total. They've scored 19 points how many times, Derek? Once.
Yep. And the one time they did do it, they lost. Go figure.
Right. And I guess it wasn't once. I mean, they did it.
I'd have to go back and check every score, but it has been that bad. Like, it has been awful. This is one of those that I'm not convinced that Russell Wilson doesn't realize that he plays in Denver and not Seattle, because at this way, the way they're trending, Seattle might get a top 5 draft pick this year from the Broncos in that trade.
Yeah.
Like that
was never the plan, right? Like, you were expecting, they made that trade. You're thinking, okay, at worst, Seattle gets like the 20th overall pick.
Right. And even
not
then,
the 5th.
You're right.
Like, embarrassing. Like, the Broncos offensively are an absolute embarrassment. I don't care if Javonte Williams was healthy. I assume it might make up for one of these games.
Right.
One. So they're 4-6 instead of 3-7. Like, I refuse to say a running back makes up all the difference in the world when their offensive line and quarterback production has been as bad as this is. Now, the first half against the Raiders looked better. Clint Kubiak calling plays looked better in the first half. But the second half looked the exact same. So I don't – the Panthers have been stingy enough on defense. I think the under is a sure thing. I really do. So hammer the under. I'm taking the Panthers. Obviously, with a 1-point spread, they're getting, about, what is it, Derek, 52-47 type money here on that. So
yeah, about that.
It's even, which is why Vegas left the number there. But I think to a man, if you got to talk to one of those guys, they'd say there's no way Denver's winning this game.
Right. Actually, you know what's crazy? We were talking about how many times the Broncos have gotten to 18 points or more in a game. Twice. It's happened 2 times. Once in a loss to the Raiders and once in a win against Jacksonville. Like, other than that, they've scored 16 points in a loss, 16 points in a win, 11 points in a win, 23 points in a loss, 9 points in a loss, 16 points in a loss, 9 points in a loss, 21 points in a win, 10 points in a loss, 16 points in a loss. So I don't know that there's any way that you can see the Broncos get to halfway of this 36 point total on that one to cover that thing and take you to the over. So I'm taking the under. I'm right there with you. The Broncos have allowed the fewest amount of actual real points in the NFL. And Carolina has struggled putting points on the board. The Broncos have struggled putting points on the board. So I'm going to call for Carolina to cover this. I think they win. I think at home, they managed to get the win at home. The under I think the under is a pretty easy one to go with here. And I'm taking Russell Wilson under 1.5 passing touchdowns. We've seen him only do that once, I think, all season. So I'm just going to keep riding that train until he makes me lose something on that one.
I'm taking Deontay Foreman over 54.5. rushing yards. Yeah. The line's a little interesting, honestly. Like I thought it'd be a little bit heavier than that when I went and found it, but I think he finds a way to get to about 60 yards. Like I don't think he's going to go gangbusters, but I do think he finds a way to get to about 60 yards because he's just about the only reason Carolina's going to move the ball against the Broncos.
Yeah. Yep. And although, you never know. Sam Darnold actually came out and just peppered DJ Moore with targets last year. So we could see a sighting of DJ Moore for once. Although going up against this Denver secondary is not the way to do it, but you could see
Surtain's still a beast, man.
Yes. I'm just saying you could see DJ Moore get 9 targets. Whether or not they're catchable and he may only come away with 3 receptions, that's the case, but he might get nine targets on this one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got him in the home league. He's not starting this week. Just throwing that out there as well. All right, a couple of comments coming in here. Let's go ahead and hit this one up. Brady or Carr, does the weather in Cleveland concern you?
No, the weather in Cleveland doesn't concern me, especially for Brady, right? All things New England, right? This is just coming back into it. And at the end of the day, I think it might actually help Brady more than anything else because it just means he gets to have another, tuck rule game or something like that. Like he'll just find a way. Carr's been playing better. So I see the intrigue there, but I think Seattle, for whatever reason, just kind of has it clicking. And I don't think the Raiders come into that game and, dominate. You're not going to see Carr bust loose and throw a 54-yard touchdown pass in overtime to win a game like he did against the Broncos. So I'm going to say Brady by a hair. 2 points more than Derek Carr. Derek Carr will get like 19.5. I think Brady's going to get to 21 or 22.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm going to take Tom Brady by a hair there as well. The weather doesn't concern me much either, just from the standpoint that it's supposed to be 56 degrees. Yes, it's supposed to be rainy. The wind's only supposed to be about 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is pretty par on the course, which I'm not going to lie, that sounds a lot like a game in New England this time of year. Like that very much.
And it's all short routes, right? Brady's not driving the ball down the field a whole hell of a lot. That's why I think Godwin's going to have such a great game, right? Uh-huh. Evans is going to be doing some of the deep route. He'll take a shot or two. Godwin's, ins, quick outs, slants. Like Godwin's going to feast in this game.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. So, all right, let's go ahead and hit up the next question here. Sebastian over on YouTube. Do I trade Jones for Cook? Jones has a week 14 bye and I must win that week. Also have Justin Jefferson.
Having Jefferson and Cook at the same time doesn't bother me. Like that's not a concern that I have when I'm looking at it. They're both able to have games where they can fully kind of go off and do their thing.
It is full point PPR as well.
But it didn't do anything in week 14 if he has to win that week.
It's true.
I mean, me saying no gets him 0 points.
It's true.
Right? Like I understand. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm pulling up Minnesota's schedule here real quick. Against Detroit? Yeah. Yes. Yes. You're doing it. You're trading Aaron Jones, skipping that bye week. Let Cook have at it against Detroit. That game should be competitive for a while. You expect the Vikings to go ahead and pull that out. And as they increase that lead, you should see more and more Dalvin Cook. So, yes, I think you have to, especially if it's a must-win week for you. You're not going to have a choice.
Right. All righty. Terry, welcome back into the chat there, Terry. Kirk Evans, White, Miles, Cooper, Njoku, or Everett, got to pick 2.
Mike Evans and Miles Sanders.
That's where I've got a prop on Miles Sanders that I really like when we get to that one, and that would lead me to going with the Miles. I'm assuming that's Rachaad White. If Leonard Fournette misses, I would go with the Rachaad White on that one. But if not, I'm going to probably go with the Evans there as well. I like the Amari Cooper a bit, but again, I think the upside's bigger on Mike Evans there. House of Bricks, Jeff Wilson and Fournette for Jonathan Taylor. You pulling the trigger on that trade?
Yeah, I'll take JT. I think Fournette's going to see less and less of it, right?
Mhm.
Jeff Wilson's going to have a big week this week. But Taylor could as well against the Steelers, and that's fine. And with Jeff Saturday running the show here, through 2 weeks, I am convinced that you will see more Jonathan Taylor type outputs than what you've seen for the vast majority of this season. So give up Jeff Wilson and Leonard Fournette, sure, and you get JT. I think it's probably closer than what you would think just based off the name power, but I still think it's a bit of a steal for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Wilson has certainly come along and come on since that trade in Week 9, finishing as RB11, Week 10 finishing as RB6. They had to buy in Week 11, but Jonathan Taylor, I think you're right. Like that's one of those that, talent-wise, Jonathan Taylor greater than Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson certainly just riding a great situation. Leonard Fournette, I'm right there with you. I think that he's going to be having kind of his downhill slope. And the thing that worries me in Miami, I think McDaniels will do it a lot like Shanahan does, where he rides a hot hand. And it's only a matter of time before you see Jeff Wilson put up a couple of duds here.
So the thing about Jonathan Taylor, as long as you don't need him for Week 14, because that's when the Colts bye is,
Yes.
His playoff run is amazing.
Yes.
You have at Minnesota, home against the Chargers, which is just mouth-watering.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're at the Giants, who just gave up a crap ton of yards to Zeke. What was it, 87 yards or 92? Sorry, 92 yards for Zeke. He had a really good game. And then if you're playing a Week 18 game, like you have a 2-week championship or something weird like that,
You
then
get the best matchup on the planet.
Yeah, then they're getting Houston, right? So if your playoffs run through Week 18, Weeks 16 and 18, you get the 2 worst rushing defenses in the NFL. Like that is mouth-watering for playoffs. Yes. You're struggling through Pittsburgh, hoping he busts loose. The game at Dallas will be really interesting to see if Dallas contains him or if he's able to kind of shake loose and get something going against the Cowboys. And then the bye week. So you got to kind of muddle through the next 3 weeks. But if you have the depth to do that, come playoffs, you're going to love it.
Yeah, absolutely. The only way that playoff matchup gets even better is if Detroit was in there as well as one of those teams. So love it. So Tober, trying to sell Dalvin Cook tonight, trade deadline. What you got? Who are you trying to go after there, Kevin?
Dalvin Cook and a piece for Jonathan Taylor. The kind of what we just said. You're looking at playoff schedules then. If you're trying to sell Dalvin Cook tonight for that, you're looking playoff schedules. So you're trying to find ways to improve. I'm guessing you're going to want a running back in return. So you probably need to go Dalvin Cook and a piece for something like a Jonathan Taylor. Maybe even, you can take a stab at Derrick Henry, but I don't think you're going to get there.
What about ETN? Bit of a trade up there, but ETN has just coming off the bye week, so he's got the rest of the weeks he's available. He's got Baltimore this week, then it's Detroit, Tennessee, Dallas, the Jets, Week 17's Houston.
That's not terrible. It's not lovely. But what about Ramondre Stevenson? Right? Like, see if you can get Stevenson and a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because Stevenson's seeing a ton of PPR work. He is seeing so many catches out of the backfield right now that just helps kind of boost that floor. So he's the guy that I'd be looking after. ETN's another guy. Kenneth Walker possibly, right? Like if you're trying to grab something like that, these high-end guys. If Zeke didn't come back and look so good Thursday like he did, I'd say Tony Pollard and a piece, but I don't think that's going to happen. Joe Mixon possibly. You're just going to have to suffer through this week. And you could take a stab at Nick Chubb. right? And see how that works out. So I do think you have options here. Like, it's just a matter of what you're willing to put together to get it.
And Nick Chubb's one of those, especially over the last 6 weeks. Dalvin Cook's been outperforming him at half-point PPR scoring. So, I mean, you've got one of those that could certainly be on the table.
He has
there.
Stevenson.
So running backs are Cook, Stevenson, Elijah Mitchell, Rashad White, and Jamal Williams.
I tell you, a guy who might work for you is Josh Jacobs.
Really? I never thought I'd hear those words come out.
Well, it's not my first choice, but just looking at what Jacobs has done here over the season, my problem with Jacobs is I don't like his playoff schedule
at all.
Rams, Patriots, Pittsburgh, San Francisco. Like, that's a really tough playoff schedule for Josh Jacobs. So I don't think I like that very much. On the flip side, if you're trying to go with, all right, Aaron Jones, something, Chicago, then the bye, the Rams, but he'll see enough passing work in that game that I think he's able to get something. Miami, then Minnesota is something that's possible there. And then obviously Kenneth Walker is a guy that we've been talking about. His is kind of mixed as well. Vegas this week, Rams, Carolina, San Francisco, Kansas City, the Jets championship week. But it's at home. So I think you can kind of work your way through that. So I like the Stevenson piece. Jamal just keeps scoring touchdowns, but you can't just depend on that. So, Cook, it might take Cook and something. But I think ETN, Kenneth Walker, maybe Joe Mixon, maybe Aaron Jones, something like that.
I like it. Alrighty. We've got follow up on that. Roster is Herbert, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, Schultz, Kirk, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Devontae Smith, Marquise Hollywood Brown, plus their RBs that he already mentioned there. So I think he's pretty well set at wide receivers with Jefferson, Amon-Ra, and Hollywood coming back. And you've got enough depth with Devonta that you could throw him in there too.
I have so many Jefferson, Amon-Ra, St. Brown stacks this year that it's freaking nuts. Like, I didn't realize it until a couple weeks ago, and I went, holy crap! Like, they're good weeks. I am on fire. Like, it is just so fun to watch. Try if you're trying to trade up for a back, try Cook and Devonta Smith and start there and see what it is like.
Yeah,
and I mean, you might have to trade up and get Hollywood Brown out of there, and that's fine. But whatever you do, don't get rid of Jefferson. Don't get rid of St. Brown. Like, you can give up Cook and any one of those other wide receivers. That's fine to move up and get the running back that you want, but just don't give up Jefferson or St. Brown.
And telling us that he just traded Pierce for Amon-Ra. Trade went through yesterday.
Nice. I like that. That's good. Yeah, that's a good trade.
All righty. Bronson over on YouTube. Flex Donovan Peoples-Jones or George Pickens, full PPR.
I'm going Pickens. Okay. I'm going Pickens. I think it's probably about the same, honestly. Like, you're looking somewhere in that neighborhood of, 45 to 55 yards. I like the fact that Pittsburgh does tend to throw the ball a little bit more than Cleveland does. And there's not a true, Deontay Johnson is the number one, but he's not a true number one like Amari Cooper is for Cleveland. So That does get spread out a bit more. Pickett has been looking a little bit better. Steelers are getting healthier defensively, which means they're going to be able to stay a bit more balanced and kind of catch people by surprise. The play actions should start working a little bit better for them. It all helps Pickens. I think he's emerging, and Peoples-Jones is just kind of that guy, right? I mean, you're going to see 55 to 65 yards a game on average. That's just kind of what he does. If you get a touchdown, great. Pickens, his instant floor is that.
Right.
You're hoping for 75 and a touchdown. His floor is where DPJ is most weeks.
Yeah, and I think both of these guys are wide receiver threes this week, and I think that George Pickens gets him by about a point, so I would also go Pickens as well. Trade Kamara, Deshaun Watson, and Thielen for Amon-Ra and Mixon, or Ramadre and D-Hop.
Kamara, Deshaun Watson, and Thielen.
This has got to be a single QB league.
I think I want Mixon just based off of sheer volume.
Yeah.
Like Ramondre Stevenson is a great piece to have. He's a great piece to have, and he's been used so well. And his schedule sets up fairly nicely. Obviously, Buffalo next week, which is going to be an interesting game. But we just saw the Lions give him a hell of a game. Then Arizona, Vegas, Cincinnati, Miami to kind of round out your playoffs. So you only have to play Buffalo once, which is a good thing. You get that one at home. So I like Stevenson. Mixon, on the other hand, obviously out this week against Tennessee. And then it gets a little tight, like Cleveland or Kansas City and Cleveland, which is favorable, but then Tampa Bay, New England, Buffalo is how he kind of rounds out the season. So Mixon's going to be a little tighter. So maybe it is Stevenson. And I'm okay with Ramondre. I'm on Raw and Mixon or Ramondre and D-Hop. I'm on Raw and D-Hop to me are a wash. So I'm going to get that out of the way.
If Kyler's playing, I'd rather have D-Hop than Amon-Ra. I'll throw that one out there.
I'm going to say Ramondre because I like his playoff schedule a little bit more. I think there's more boom potential out of the playoffs. And with the way he's been catching the ball and seeing, 8 to 10 targets a game these past few weeks, I think it's worth getting those cheat points from Stevenson.
Yeah. And the fact that I think I'd rather have D-Hop heading down the stretch. He's been amazing since he's come back off the suspension there. He's wide receiver 5 in week 6 through 11. So, I'm going to lean the Stevenson route, and I'm going to take Ramondre. So Ramondre and D-Hop is the way I'd lean there as well. Connor, over on the YouTube there, Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen, Rachaad White, Kamara got to start 3.
I think you're going Allen, White, and Kamara.
Agreed. I just don't know that Christian Kirk's going to see enough in this one to overshadow those other guys. Terry over on YouTube, Kamara versus San Francisco or Pacheco against the Rams, Murray versus Carolina. I'm asking at that point, I don't see a question in there. So let's just rank them 1, 2, 3. Which way are you leaning in terms of who you'd rather start?
Murray, Kamara, Pacheco.
Yeah, Pacheco's last on that list there. San
Francisco's just been on such a tear, and that defense has been so good against the run. Even the stuff out of the backfield, I don't expect Kamara to get loose in that game, and since I think Kamara's going to get game scripted out. I think San Francisco's just going to be able to do enough to game script Kamara out. So Murray, he's going to be used the entire game. Then Kamara, because I think his touchdown ability is a little bit higher. And then Pacheco against the Rams is number 3.
I like it. Rachaad White or Kamara this week, full point PPR, favored by 30 right now. 3rd place, 12-person league. If Lenny misses, I'll play Rachaad White at that point. If Lenny goes, I'm going to pivot to Kamara. Is how I would roll that one.
Yeah, I think I agree.
All righty, and then Connor asking Marquise Brown and Fields for Pat Mahomes. Yeah, I would do that and move on.
Yes.
If Jacobs can't go, who's the running back to have in Las Vegas?
God.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I would assume it's Brandon Bolden because that's who Josh McDaniels is most familiar with.
But if Jacobs
It ain't
can't go, I don't know that I
freaking
want
Amir
any.
Abdullah. Like I really wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think either one are worth a start or even a stash. Like if Jacobs can't go, you're just trying to fight through it here. But I think he plays.
I think so as well. And this is one of those that will probably get, y'all remember a few years ago when Josh Jacobs came out and went, "Oh, I'm not playing," and sent the tweet out and sent the Twitter world a storm. And turns out that he ended up playing. Like it was all just joking. Like you could very well get one of those types of things on this one. But yeah, if Jacobs doesn't go, I don't know that I want any piece of that Raiders backfield on that one. That offense is bad. That defense is worse, and you could very well see them. You'd see that to a point where they may not even be in that enough to keep a game script close enough to run the ball. So, all right, let's head to our next matchup: Baltimore Jaguars. Ravens favored by 4, and the over/under is 43.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
Taking the Ravens to cover in this game, and I like the over here. I think there's going to be some points. Another week of Andrews being back and healthy. I expect him to have a pretty stinking good game here. It's going to put Jacksonville in the situation where I just don't know if their defense is going to be able to keep up, right? Like they're going to be in kind of a goofy game script, even though that game's at home. That it's not really home field advantage there. So I like Baltimore and I like the over.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Baltimore comes in, finds a way to win this thing by 4. I do like the over in this one as well. I could easily see both teams putting up 20 plus when it's all said and done here. One of the props that I really liked was Travis Etienne going over 17.5 receiving yards. Again, this is one of those that he could knock that out with one single play. We could easily see that one happen. And Etienne, while hasn't necessarily been super involved in a lot of the passing work, has been getting enough to make that to a point where he can clear 17.5 receiving yards.
I have Christian Kirk going over 62.5. I know there's been a lot of questions about him here this week. I've been going over the 62.5, but not by like astronomical amounts here, guys. Like I'm thinking maybe 65, 67 yards, something like that. You really need the touchdown out of Kirk to make him relevant. Otherwise, it's just, 8 to 11 fantasy points, depending on whether you're half point or full point.
Yep. All righty, next matchup here. We got the Chargers. We got the Cardinals. Chargers are favored by 3. The over/under 47. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking the Chargers. The Cardinals have been just as bad as the Broncos have been. They're just a little bit more exciting offensively. Like they seem to find ways to lose and just not being able to move the ball at the right time. But Kyler's going, so he says. He's been off the injury report here the last couple of days, so I tend to believe that. So that'll be a good thing for him. But no, I'm not thinking Hollywood goes. We know Rondale Moore's not going. So a lot of D-Hop, a lot of James Conner, and Kyler's just going to try and find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you. I like the Chargers in this one. I like the over on this one here as well. I think both of these teams find a way to put up points on this one. One of the things that, Kyler dealing with that hammy, and one of the things that I could see is the pass rush of the Chargers getting home a little bit and making Kyler have to work for that, trying to get the ball out a little bit quicker than he likes to, not able to do some of the creating and getting outside of the pocket that we've seen him do. So that leads me to my prop of Kyler Murray under 248.5 passing yards on this one.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, which is why I took the James Conner over 16.5. Going to get some pressure on him, a little bit more short yardage, dump off type stuff. So I think Conner's going to see a couple extra catches out of this game. He'll find a way to scamper around for one, and I think that 16.5 is a pretty gentle prop for him this game. We'll just see how it shakes out.
I like it. All righty, the Raiders, the Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 3.5. The over/under 47.5. What are your thoughts here?
I'm taking Seattle here. I think they win this game by a touchdown. So I'm taking Seattle. I'm actually taking the over. I think there's going to be just enough offense here. Seattle's been forgiving enough, right? They have moments of brilliance defensively, but they have been weak at times. So I think we see a game that should be pretty entertaining offensively. Coming off the bye week, Seattle's had some extra time to prepare, get healthy, figure out how they want to kind of make this push in the division here in the NFC for the playoffs. So I like Seattle, but I think we get points and we get the over.
I like Seattle as well, but I'm not a believer that we're going to get to 48 or more points in this one. The Raiders, awful on defense. Seattle's been okay at times, like you said. But the difference is Seattle loves to run the ball in this one, and I could see this being a case where Seattle just dominates time of possession, salts the game away, and does enough where they slow the game down to the point where we have a hard time seeing 48 or more points in this one. So I do like Seattle. I do like the under on this one. This one feels a lot like it very well could be a 24 to 20 type of matchup, something like that on this one. So I'm going to take the under. One of the props that I really liked, right? I already mentioned that the Raiders are awful against the run and stopping really anybody defensively. I think Kenneth Walker III manages to go over 76.5 rushing yards.
I have DK over 61.5 receiving yards. I feel like he's going to be able to shake loose here and put a little bit of damage on the Raiders.
I like it. All right, let's hit up our next matchup here. We got the Rams. We got the Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 15.5. The over under 42. What are your thoughts here?
Kansas City. I mean, this game, the game line could almost be 20, and I'd really have to think about taking LA at that point. But anything less than 20, as crazy as that is, and I think I'm taking Kansas City here. So there's no path to points for the Rams right now. There's just not. Like, I'm not trusting anything coming out of the backfield. I'm not trusting the passing game here at the moment. So it's going to be Kansas City early and often. And 42 seems a bit too low. Like, I think you get 35 out of Kansas City. So at that point, you only need a touchdown. You only need 7 points to even get to the push. And, maybe you get, a weird special teams fumble or something. You get a field goal out of it. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how they get to it, but I'm taking the over on the points, and I'm taking Kansas City to cover. I'm going big for this game.
Yeah, this one here feels almost like Kansas City could hit the 42 by themselves. Like
it feels that way, doesn't it? Like it really does. Like 42-0 Kansas City, and would anybody truly be shocked because the Rams have been that bad? No.
So, especially with the fact that we still don't know whether it's going to be Bryce Perkins or John Wolford, is the big decision that McVay has to make between now and Sunday to start in this one. So I think I'm right there with you. As much as it pains me to have to call a 3-possession score and Kansas City to cover 3 possessions, I think that they can pretty easily do it. And it's, again, I tried playing this one out in my head many different ways, many different scenarios on this one. And I couldn't get to a point where I can see the Rams putting up more than 10 points on this one. And I really can't see Kansas City putting up less than 30 points in this one. So
this is another game when it opened at 10. If you were able to get on it right as it opened, you're loving that 10 points right now. Like, you just have to be so confident in life.
Right. And this is one of those too that, right, a lot of times we'd look at these things and go game script and go, oh man, the game script is going to actually work against Mahomes, work against the Chiefs a little bit. In this case, I don't think it does. I think that you're going to see Kansas City jump up so early on this one that you're going to see Patrick Mahomes do a ton of work in the first half and early into the third quarter. And I think Mahomes easily goes over his 284.5 passing yards in about 3 quarters worth of work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm taking Kelsey under 80.5 because for very much the same reason. I think this gets out of hand, and Kelsey Juju's back. I think they're going to mix in some running backs here. Valdez-Scantling. Like, I think they're just going to kind of tinker around with the offense here in the second half and just kind of have some fun with it. Kelsey's not going to need to have a big game to win this.
No. I do like Terry's comment down here saying Rams win in an upset.
Terry, if the Rams win in an upset, I need you to give us your information, because then next Friday night you can guest spot with us on the Friday night show. How about that?
There you go. I like it. You, Terry, you know where to find us on the YouTube. You can also find us on all the other socials there listed at Good Old Boys FF. Hit us up. Let us know if the Rams win. Kevin already called it. You got a guest spot on here next Friday with us. So tell your friends. Let's root it out. I like it. All righty. Let's go ahead and head to our next matchup here. Terry looks like he's responded to you, Kevin. I'm just waiting for the comment to come in here. For everybody out there wondering, he says, there it is. Deal. He's up. He's taking you up on your deal. I like it. All right.
I'm all for it. Let's do it.
All right, Terry, at this point, I'm almost rooting for the Rams, even though I just said that I think that the Chiefs are going to walk away with this one, just because I like having guests on here with us and helping to break down things. So, all right, let's hit up our next matchup here. We've got the Saints. We've got the Niners, and the Saints are favored to lose. You like how I did that one? It's the Niners that are favored to win by 9.5. The over-under on this one, 43. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking San Francisco and the under on this one. I think 43. I think 43 is going to be a tough point total to get to from the Saints output, right? Like, you're basically looking at what 27-17 is basically the implied point total. If it's 24-14, would anybody be surprised? Like, not at all. So I don't think 43 is going to get there, but I do think the Niners cover. I think they do win that game by 10 points. I
think you're right. Like, the Saints have had a really hard time going through and actually pulling things out there and putting together some consistency. I keep hearing reports that, Taysom Hill, they're underutilizing him and they're going to utilize him more. Well, that doesn't really help the Saints put points on the board. Really at all. If Taysom Hill's back there, we have yet to see him be a proven passing.
The record's crazy though when he scores touchdowns. Like, I don't understand from their aspect, and if you're looking at the analytics, why you don't let Taysom Hill do some things more. Like, if you win at a 70, it's like a 72% clip. If Taysom Hill scores a touchdown, I think you're finding a way for him to score a touchdown in every single game and just taking your chances.
Right. Well, it's the same thing with San Francisco on the flip side of that with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? When Jimmy Garoppolo's a starting quarterback for them, they win at 70+% clip, and yet they still went out, traded up to go get a replacement so that he can, all of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting the way some of these things work out. But yeah, I do think San Francisco wins this one. I think that you're going to see them cover this thing pretty easily. I do think that the under, right? I made mention earlier that the Broncos are a terrific defense and very good at not allowing other teams to score points. Well, the second best team in the league is San Francisco, and they're only 2 points. They've only allowed 2 more points all season than the Denver Broncos have in this one. And I'm pretty sure that actually happened in the game where they played each other. That's really kind of the difference between those two.
San Francisco will end up owning that because the Broncos still have to play the Chiefs twice.
Yes, that's very true. And as good as they've been, I don't know that they're going to be able to slow them down enough. Anyway, I say all of that to then say that I don't like the Saints in this one. And Andy Dalton, I see him going under 216.5 passing yards.
Yeah, I have Brandon Ayuk over 53.5 receiving yards. He's been on a bit of a tear lately. He got a couple touchdowns last Monday night there in Mexico City. I think the ride continues, man. Like, the Debo has fallen off a cliff, and it has been the Brandon Ayuk show.
Terry's calling his shot on 23-13 San Francisco. So it sounds like
I like that. I think that's extremely plausible. Like, I would have no issues throwing some units down on – a predictive final game score with that amount. Like, that doesn't scare me at all.
Right. So, I could absolutely see that. Sounds like Terry likes San Francisco and the under as well. So, there we go. The three of us were on the same page at that time.
He's getting primed up, right?
There we go. I like it. He's getting ready for his for his close-up for next
That's right.
Friday night. All righty, let's look at the Packers and the Eagles. Eagles favored by 6.5, over under 46.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I got Eagles by a touchdown here. I think the hook honestly does nothing for me. 6.5, like whatever. So Eagles by touchdown. I feel good about that. They got to find a way to win a little bit cleaner, if that makes sense, right? They kind of had some back-to-back ugly games, but winning ugly helps build some resilience and some identity within your team, right? You can't win every game by 15 to 20 points. So I like the fact that this game should be a little bit closer. Green Bay seems like they are so close to just having the death knell put in them, especially after last Thursday night. But they get the extra games to prepare for this one. Sunday night, prime time. We know Aaron Rodgers typically likes to come out and show well on those, as do the Eagles. So I like the over. Lots of points in this game. I think this might be our highest scoring game of the week when it's all said and done with, but the Eagles find a way by a touchdown.
Yep, I like that. I'm going to take Philly to cover as well. I do like the over as well. This one feels a lot like you're going to see Philadelphia probably get to about 30-23 is how I see this one kind of playing out, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so I think that we're going to see, 28-21 even, something like that. I think we're going to see Philly get really close to 30, and the Packers keep that at about a one possession type of game there. So I do like Philly. I do like the over. I do like Miles Sanders going over his rushing prop of 65.5 rushing yards.
I like Aaron Jones going over 23.5 receiving yards. I just feel like this one's set a little bit too low. We know that it's going to be a little bit tougher to get the ball outside on the Eagles. They are a little bit better there, but up the middle while throwing the ball, they've been a bit more forgiving. So I think Aaron Jones finds a way to get one. He can get this covered in one pass, right? Like we've talked about some of these other running back passing totals. It's low enough for him. Figure he'll see 4 or 5 balls this game. He'll get there.
I like it. Terry's calling his shot, saying Green Bay 17, Philly 24. So
there you go.
He's on the underside of that one, but he does like Philly to cover. I like it. Not as much as I like the over, though, Terry. I'm sorry. All right, let's go ahead and head over to our final matchup here. We got the Steelers. We've got the Colts. The Colts favored by 2.5, the over-under 39. What are your thoughts here?
I like Pittsburgh. I think defensively they're really kind of starting to find themselves here. They're getting coached hard, right? Like this is going to be the first time Mike Tomlin doesn't have a winning season in his career. Like, holy crap. So they're learning, they're developing. Kenny Pickett's getting better. George Pickens is getting better. They're finding ways to get Najee more involved. He's gotten a couple touchdowns here the past few weeks, so that's a good sign. So I think Pittsburgh finds another way to win this game. I'm taking the over just because I do think the Colts have enough to keep them honest, right? Like it's not like the the Saints Steelers game last week, right? Where the under was, pretty obvious coming in that game. I think there's going to be a couple points scored here. So we're going to see 40, I'm going to say a 43 total this game.
I could certainly see that. I think that we do see, like, this is one of those that both of these teams, I think, are going to put up 20 points when it's all said and done. I do like the Steelers to cover this one. I think this one's going to be a very close competitive match. Wouldn't surprise me when this thing's all said and done and you see this thing end, 20, 22 to 20 type of thing. Something like that. I might
have to revoke my invitation, Terry. Oh my gosh.
Oh, now I think Terry's just trolling us. But I like his optimism on the props there. I'm going to go ahead and get to mine though. Jonathan Taylor, over 13.5 receiving yards. I think that he's got, this is one of those, again, he can take care of this in one play. He's been doing enough on the ground to be able to get, 15 to 20 yards on through the air. And I think that we can easily see that one come to play on this one. So JT over 13.5 receiving yards.
I'm going to take a Pat Freiermuth anytime touchdown in this game.
I like it. Going the anytime TD. And for everybody out there that was curious,
like
Terry
plus 310.
Yeah, that's a nice little jump there. I like that one. Terry's saying that Pittsburgh 27, Indy 28. So he's liking the over. He's liking the cover. And Paris Campbell, 12 receptions, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns on his prop there is what it sounds like.
Career day for Paris Campbell.
Yeah. It would be our luck that we jump off the Paris Campbell train and forsake him. And all of a sudden, that's what it took for him to do that. I will take full credit for that we
He's
doing
jump
it
off
to
spite us, right?
Exactly. So, because we were the only ones that I've seen out there really pounding the table for as many years going, Paris Campbell breakout's coming, it's coming. And we just, kind of jumped off that train earlier this year.
2
and now
weeks too early.
Exactly. So, got another question coming in here. Drunken Squidward over on YouTube. Is Zach Wilson a drop now in dynasty leagues?
No. Zach Wilson's going to end up being a starter there again. They're teaching him a lesson. In a dynasty league, you're holding on to him. Redraft leagues, you can drop him. Dynasty league, you're holding on to him. Yeah.
Well, dynasty leagues, he probably shouldn't have been on your bench or on your roster anyway, unless it super deep, super flex type of league. But yeah, you're
you still keep him. All those quarterbacks get picked up.
So,
young quarterbacks, they're getting stuck on a roster, man.
No, I hear you. In a redraft, though, in a single QB league, there's no reason for Zach Wilson to really be on your roster.
No, not a redraft. You're right.
That's what I was saying. Sorry if it didn't come across that way. So, but yeah, Drunken Squidward, they're 2 years into the Zach Wilson experiment, and I don't see that necessarily being much of a thing there. Like I think they'll go back to that route and see what they've got next year, right? Like I don't think that it doesn't make sense to give up on a guy 2 years into the thing. So
just crazy how immature he still sounds.
Yeah. Well, it's weird too, especially when you're getting other people's accounts of the situation and all of that as well.
I was reading. I'd rather have Josh Rosen right than Zach Wilson. Here's something about Zach Wilson. A couple different Zach Wilson facts. One, I was reading Pro Football Talk's power rankings on Tuesday, and they had a nice little quip about that. When your quarterback looks like he's 12, you have to make sure he doesn't sound like he's 12. The Jets must have missed that memo, and that one I got a chuckle out of. And then I was listening to something else, I believe it was last night, and they said that if you took away the names and started comparing total QBR and statistics through this point of their careers, Zach Wilson and Jamarcus Russell, who is widely regarded as one of the biggest flops in NFL history, have almost identical numbers. Now, I think they were trying to prove that, say that for a different point. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just saying I would have to agree with that. Jamarcus Russell and Zach Wilson, terrible.
Yes. Terry said he'd rather have Russell Wilson than Zach Wilson. I guess I have to agree. But yeah. Yeah.
I like the price tag. It's easier to move on from Zach Wilson.
Yes.
The price tag's not nearly as steep.
Yeah. Whereas the Broncos are stuck with Russ for 5 years, and hopefully something gets turned around there. Drunken Squidward saying Zach Wilson reminds him of Johnny Manziel.
In some regards, he doesn't come across as the idiot frat boy that Manziel did. But Zach Wilson definitely has some maturing to do.
So Terry's saying, as a matter of fact, if a quarterback's last name is Wilson, don't draft him. I don't know. Seattle got a Super Bowl out of that one.
Well, that was his second year in the league. True. We're on year 10 now. We're way closer to the toilet bowl than the Super Bowl.
Yes. Okay, could you imagine if the Texans weren't as bad as they really have been? Like, just think about that for a minute. If the Texans weren't as absolutely bad as they've been, like, there's a good chance that you could have seen, you could realistically see that to a point where, the Broncos might have been in the running for the number one pick type of thing. There's so many teams with 3 wins right now that you could see that. And
I hope they find a way to get a couple more. I mean, and at this point, it's just so Seattle doesn't have a top 5 pick on top of it. It's like, good night, guys.
Where you traded a top 10 pick, a top 5 pick, and gave a guy, $250 million over 5 years to, win 3 games in his first year. Yeah. On a roster that we all thought would be pretty good, and the defense is elite. Anyway, moving on. Waddle or D-Hop, rest of the season with Marquise Hollywood Brown coming back. Both of them are great options. I'd rather have D-Hop. I'd rather have the certified number 1 on the team than the number 2 behind an elite guy like Tyreek.
I agree. I think the more difficult choice might be Marquise or Waddle rest of season. D-Hop's kind of clearly the guy that I would rather have, but Waddle or Marquise rest of season, I think that one's kind of up for debate and what you would like to see kind of out of both of those guys here rest of season. Waddle, unfortunately for Waddle, he took such a step back in target share that I didn't see coming. I think we knew Tyreek would be involved, right? But we thought that this would be a bit more balanced throughout the season. And Tyreek is getting fed any week now. Like it was 1A, 1B to start the season, right? They were going gangbusters, and now it is clearly Tyreek is the number 1 and Waddle is the number 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. Drunken Squidward asking, is Alex Pierce relevant still with Paris Campbell emerging?
Absolutely, especially in dynasty leagues.
Yep. Well, Matt Ryan really likes Alec Pierce, and if Matt Ryan's the quarterback there, you very well could see him still get enough targets to be fantasy relevant. But keep in mind when you're talking fantasy relevance for these Colts wide receivers outside of Michael Pittman, your fantasy relevance weeks are going to be wide receiver 3 weeks, really more as a ceiling type of play in most cases. Like
you're hoping they break one loose and can jump into like wide receiver 18 or 19.
Yeah.
20, something like that. But most of the time they're going to be sitting somewhere in the neighborhood of, 28 to 36.
Yeah. I mean, Paris Campbell has been good recently on that one and over the last, so many weeks, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's put up some touchdowns in 3 of his last 6 games and has had just enough of a run to be all right there. Like, I don't see him being able to continue that through the rest of the season there. Man, I sit there and I listen to us and go, man, we've come a long way from where we were on Paris Campbell over even last year, even beginning of the season. So
I just burned too many times, and I'll take another look at it this offseason. And I'm willing, if this season, if we see this trend continue, if Paris Campbell really does go out and he has another 6 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown, I might be having to change my tune come next week, right? That is entirely possible. For dynasty purposes, Alec Pierce is absolutely so relevant. They spent a high draft pick on this guy. He is a smart player. He is a big-bodied guy that can help play the Y on the opposite side of Michael Pittman. Paris Campbell still plays the Z. He is more of a slot guy. He is the guy who is third up. And when the matchups fit, because it's hard to find 3 good corners, that's where you exploit defenses. So yes, Paris Campbell could absolutely continue to have relevance. But I'm not really ready to give my ringing letter of endorsement until maybe next week. We'll see.
Pascal over on YouTube, do I start Rashad over ETN this week? No. Do I really like the matchup against Cleveland and Fournette being out, but it's kind of tough to bench ETN. The other running back is Jonathan Taylor. I wouldn't bench ETN. I think that he's going to – it's not going to surprise me if you see ETN get to 80 yards rushing and 20 yards through the 80 yards on the ground, 20 yards through the air, and the potential for a touchdowns in there. I think that could very well be what you see as an average type of play for him. Not a floor, not necessarily seen. That's where I see his average kind of be in this one. I think that's a ceiling play and a moonshot play for Rachaad White.
I completely concur. At the end of the day, I like Rachaad White this week, but it's still a pass. It's a pass-first team, and Tom Brady is in I'm not effing around anymore mode, which means he's going to drop back, and we'll start seeing him throw the ball more here the back half of the season than what he did in the first part of the season as the Buccaneers try and reestablish identity and dominance heading into the final stretch of the regular season.
I like it. Drunken Squidward, who would you start? Pick two. Treylon Burks, Josh Palmer, Paris Campbell, Courtland Sutton.
I'm taking Josh Palmer because that is the offense that throws the ball the most. And he's had some really good weeks. I mean, even last week with Williams and Keenan Allen both back. Yes, Williams went out, but Josh Palmer still saw a ton of work, went over 100 yards, had the touchdown. I think he's carved out his role in that offense, and they like to use him for that. And then I'm going to say, man, oh man, I think Burks could be the ceiling play, but he probably also has the toughest matchup with how well the Bengals have covered kind of that big X receiver for any team. So Palmer, and I'm Sutton because he's the number one guy and Campbell's the 2A or 2B guy. So I'll say Sutton, but I think Sutton and Campbell have probably a similar stat line by the time it's all said and done with. Burks, I think, finishes up slightly behind them. He might have 55 yards, where Sutton and Campbell, you're expecting 60 to 65.
Yeah, I like Palmer. I like Sutton. Palmer's been a fairly reliable wide receiver, too, when either Mike Williams or Keenan Allen misses time. Mike Williams should still be out on this week here going forward. So Josh Palmer is kind of a smash on that one. Courtland Sutton, as much as I don't like this Broncos offense, I think that he's going to see enough targets to get there. Paris Campbell's got the tough matchup against Pittsburgh on that one, and I don't know that I necessarily want to rock and roll that one. I think that you're going to see, I think that you're going to see Indy try and really establish the run on that. Treylon Burks is an interesting play for me, just from the standpoint that I think that you could see him get 2, maybe even 3 deep shots on a play action pass, whether or not they connect or not. Like, that's going to be the thing that determines it, because you could easily see Treylon Burks get 4 or 5 targets at 3 receptions, and the yardage total be anywhere from 15 to 75 yards on that. And it's all just because of if those deep shots connect on that one. And he's got to kind of fall in the end zone on top of it for that to really kind of come through. So the way that I'm playing it, I would play Palmer. I would play Sutton. I would actually probably put Burks slightly ahead of Campbell this week, just because I think that the upside is higher with Burks than it is with Paris. So that's how I would roll. And Terry's liking Paris Campbell. So there you go. You got Terry's opinions. You got ours there. Drunken Squidward or Drunk Squidward. Again, guys, if you think of anything else, go ahead and hit us up. Let us know. We're going to start winding down here. And if you have any questions, we'll hit those up before we go. But Kevin, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Enjoy a really good weekend of football. Again, great college games tomorrow with it being rivalry week. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State kind of headlines that, but you do get to see a bunch. Like, honestly, I know we're not really talking about it. The Purdue-IU game should be a really good one, because with Iowa losing to Nebraska today, if Purdue wins, they get in for the West, and then you get to see Purdue play Michigan or Ohio State. So there's something to be played there. Auburn, Alabama, always good. That'll be the CBS game, right? And then as we continue to move things along. You know, you have who is USC and I don't even remember who USC is playing. It doesn't matter.
I'll tell you.
It doesn't
matter.
Notre
Dame.
That's right, Notre Dame. It does matter. So playoff implications, and then you move into these NFL games. So lots of good football on. Tons of stuff to do. Decorate your house. Leave the games on in the background. Drink some beers. Have some fun. You know, if you're able to grill a steak or something, hang out with the family. It'll be good.
And again, if you have any questions, hit us up, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. We'll get back to you just as quickly as we can. A couple of questions in here. Pascal asking, who do you prefer, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams going forward?
That's actually
a fully healthy Jamar Chase. It's an easy Jamar Chase for me, right? I want him in the offense that throws the ball a little bit more. Joe Burrow's been lighting the world on fire. Derek Carr, not so much. So Jamar Chase fully healthy, I want that. If I'm having to hedge on health and some of that kind of stuff, I probably lean Devontae Adams.
I'm taking Chase.
Okay, I like it. Drunk Squidward, last question. Patterson, A.J. Dillon, or Foreman for this weekend? I'm assuming that's the question. A.J. Dillon, nope.
I'm taking Foreman. Patterson's usage has not been very good since he came back from injury. Foreman, you at least know he's going to see all the touches. He might have the toughest matchup, but Patterson's isn't that great against Washington, and A.J. Dillon hasn't seen any run.
No, and I would actually rank that Foreman, Patterson, Dillon in that order for me.
I would agree.
Yep, that's how I would look at that one. Again, guys, one of the best ways to support this independent podcast, head over to the YouTube, click the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. You can also find it youtube.com/@goodoldboysff. All that good stuff. Kevin, any thoughts here before I send us out?
No, keep firing the questions away as you guys have them. Hit us up on the socials. Best of luck to everybody as we keep it going down the final stages, right, into playoffs. But everybody have a good weekend. Stay safe.
Absolutely. Hey guys, that's going to do it for us. If you have any questions in the meantime, we'll be back live Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern, and hitting up the Thursday preview, recapping the weekend, all that good stuff, hitting the waiver wire, all the info that you need there. Tuesday is when we'll be back live at 11 p.m. Eastern here on the YouTube channel, Twitch, and Twitter. You can find us on all those socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF, and hit the subscribe button on the YouTube. Anyway, he's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos. Oh, Kevin, I got one. Like, they got this thing in right as I was getting ready to hit the end. So we'll hit this one, and then I'm going to send this out. Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks this week. I'm going Treylon Burks.
I'm going Garrett Wilson.
Okay, I like it. Split decision there, Elias. I like Treylon Burks just simply from the standpoint play action pass, and I think that he's got some bigger upside. I'm assuming that you're going Garrett Wilson because of the potential target share and Mike White trying to pepper him.
Yes.
Cool. So there you go, Elias. You got the split decision, but you at least got the reason that we're going that way. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloo.